Hello, Kansas and Western fans. It's time for episode 21 of the construction of the Kansas and Western HO scale railroad. We're going to stick mostly in the western part of the layout room because that's where I focused most of my efforts. I was tasked a couple weeks ago with wiring the UP yard. If you saw my operations video on Sunday, you saw that I did that. And I'm going to show you a little further evidence of what the weathering, or the wiring mess looks like underneath. I'm not sure if I've ever showed this before, but those red clips, can't think of the word right now. I'll think of it later, or somebody will think of it for me. Those are lifesavers. It saves me from having to solder, and I know that's kind of a sore subject with a lot of people that have had difficulty with them, or have had some cheap ones that didn't work or didn't stay together. I don't know, but they sure saved me a lot of trouble, and that's how I was able to knock wiring this thing out in a week. So glad I don't do that again, because that does take a lot of time. It's not difficult, it's just a lot of man hours to get it done. Anyway, we'll go ahead and do a brief overview and then discuss what we're going to vote on for this next period. Down here in the Royal Gorge route, not really anything in this area except for I've added the backdrop that I talked about. And man, it sure makes a difference. This is the first layout I've gotten to the backdrop level, or reached that goal, I guess. And I can't say enough about how awesome it is to add backdrops to your layout, because it just makes everything look so much better. So if you haven't thought about doing it, I highly recommend it. It's not very expensive, and you can just slap a coat of paint on there temporarily until you decide what else to do. But even just some light sky blue makes a big difference for the interim, because before all you could see back there was stud lumber in dark spaces, and now it does a good job of reflecting the light back onto the scene and better focuses the eye on what you're wanting people to look at instead of all the various things in the background. But I'm still planning to do digital backdrops, whether I have them printed at Walgreens or somewhere else, I don't know, but that's why it's just kind of rough painted for now, and I don't have the seams mudded or anything like that, because I plan to cover it all later with vinyl. Anyway, moving back up here. So Wichita yard is basically finished, and just last night I found a solution for why I can't ever get these engine service terminals complete, and it's because I just don't like the idea of laying rail directly on this styrene and hoping that the glue holds. And I've asked others about what they do, but I finally found the channel again, and this is Paul B's channel, so shout out to him because he helped me out. He figured out, or he told me what kit that he used, and it's the smaller diesel servicing kit from Waller's that has those drip pans that fit between the rails on top of the ties. And I think that's prototypical for what the Wichita yard uses. So now I can finally finish laying the track in all my engine service terminals. This one here, that one there for the Santa Fe yard, and then the one below in La Junta. So I can get those tracks completed, wired, and finally park my locos where they belong instead of random yard tracks. Moving around, I did focus again most of my efforts up here. Got the main line laid to about this point, which is about mid Towanda. Started a couple house foundations, still working on multiple different kits at this point. And I did get all the cork laid all the way to the end of this wall, which is basically the other side of the El Dorado refinery. And you can see how I have tracks laid out. I've run through all my flex tracks, so I need to order some more of that. And none of this is attached or anything like that. It's just kind of laid out, but it has shown me that I'm running out. And here will be a small yard for El Dorado, which will help switching efforts between these two Barsol plant or chemicals and BG products. And then back here for the Mears fertilizer. So just a couple sidings to help trains maneuver so they can get cars switched in. And then you can see here the tracks peel off for the refinery. I have the kits arrayed generally just to show how things might lay out. Most of this space will be taken up by refinery or tanks. I do have one tank there. I plan to get one or two more because I plan to hide the main line disappearing off into the distance through the refinery or between the tank farm and the refinery. So you can't see that it, goes off to that wall, basically. That's going to be hidden. And then this straight track here will just go right into the refinery. So large equipment can be brought in, new towers, whatever. And then these first two here that peel off, you can see the loading racks I have. There'll be a loading rack down the middle. This turnout will feed a little bit of a team track. So the refinery has its own switching for these tracks. And that's where that locomotive will park, will be off of that little spur there. And then this one here that comes off, that will go over to the coker unit where the pet coke will be stored in piles. And that can be shipped off to steel plants. And working around, you can see I have this piece of plywood left over from Helix construction. That's how I plan to bridge this gap. It'll be a lift out section that fortunately shouldn't have to be lifted out very often because it's just in front of the breaker box. Obviously you want to be able to get in there in case of emergency. And to that end, I have decided that I'm going to just run the main bus down along the wall underneath that. So I don't have to do any wiring on the lift out bridge itself, except maybe from that end. But that way, in case there is an emergency, this thing can just be flipped up out of the way or whatever, so people don't have to fumble around in the dark to make sure wires are disconnected. So, not sure what I'm going to do there. I've watched lots of videos of how to do a lift out or a fold out. We'll have to see what I end up doing. And then I've got track laid out here for Union Tank Car. And you can see it runs down the full length. I'm going to have multiple structures here. This is just the first one that I've built. It's quite the complex, and I'll show you the photo again from Google Earth. Lots of tracks. It's a big yard just for the company, but then it's, multiple structures. I'm sure there's a paint structure, something where they clean the cars out, welding, all kinds of things. Obviously, I don't have that kind of room, but I do have room for a couple different structures here. Looks like it's going to just end up being a 3-track yard, so I have plenty of room for structures. And then this, you can see there's a seam there and a seam there. So this section can be lifted out here in front of the window. I'll do a separate standing backdrop that will also have seams on either end. So in case anything ever happens to this window, broken window, whatever, I can lift this section out. And again, shouldn't have to do that very often, if at ever. But it does need to be removable, so all the track will be gapped. This gap here in the foam will probably remain, just so it's really apparent that I don't try to lay anything across that gap. So if I have to remove it, I can without tearing anything up. And then I just have some tank cars down here. And then the way this will work is obviously that track closest to the window will be the industry service track that will go through the different buildings. You got a couple escape turnouts there, so cars can be picked out without having to run the full length of the track. This middle one will basically be an arrival departure track and a switch track. So new trains that come in can be dropped off. And then this closer track here will be an engine escape track where it can get back out and then switch midpoint and get back around an outbound train, which will be this outer track here between the end down there and this turnout. So got that all figured out now. Have most of the track and turnouts I need for this, so I can get to work on that. And yeah, this will be the biggest challenge yet, since the helices is never done a lift out before, so we'll see how that goes. And then for some other minor things, you can see I'm working on the Mears fertilizer building there. I did finally put my booster in, and I'll show you that here in a second. But here's as far as I've gotten for my programming track relay. Just got a little panel here for the switch. I haven't got the right switch yet. I need a double pole, double throw center off switch to make sure I don't accidentally contact the power between the main line and the programming track. But I have that installed. This is my PCP panel that my PowerCab was using in its location where the booster is now. So I have that moved here, and then my PowerCab will normally rest there. But now that I'm not relying on the PowerCab for track power, I can use it wherever I want. In fact, now I don't really even know where it is because it can float around without powering the layout. And anyway, over here, where I did have it stationed is where the booster's set up. And this was so easy. I'm a little bit annoyed for myself for not doing this earlier, but you can see this plug. I can pull it out here. So this actually is the same plug that goes to the PCP panel. So literally all I had to do was unplug it from the PCP panel and plug it into this. Didn't have to unhook any wires, anything like that, because they're the same piece, because it's all NCE equipment. So they were smart enough to make these the same size thing. So easy. It took me longer to build this little shelf to put this thing on than it did to plug it in, try it out. Works great. So, and then also it freed up this UTP panel, which that's where the PCP panel was. Start a lot of acronyms here. But with the PowerCab here, it wasn't allowing me to use this panel for all this switching up here. And now that it's a UTP panel with a free port, now I can use it, and it's made things a lot easier for switching up here in the Wichita yard. So that was handy, well worth the money, works great, very easy. Moving down here, not much to do down there, or not much done down there, because again, I did focus all my effort on that other area. The one thing I did add was down here in Holly. I got a backdrop put in for this end, which will effectively mask off the helix and begin to really finish out this scene. I just have to obviously get it painted. And then this foreground here, where the main line peels off into the helix, all of this will be hidden from view until right about this area by trees, a little hill cut, whatever. Haven't gotten that far yet with planning, but you won't be able to see that portal. You won't be able to see really the main line peel off. It'll just disappear from view. Anyway, I guess that's about it. It took a whole week to do that wiring, so I didn't get a whole lot of structure work done, but I did get all this track laid out, so I have a really good idea now of how the rest of the track is going to look for the layout. So, time for the poll. Interested in what you guys come up with this time. Obviously a lot of enticing options. I am going to start doing a cutoff. I noticed the last poll, some newcomers were throwing in votes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday after the poll. So I'm going to cut off voting at midnight on Sunday. And I will post that in the comments just to kind of remind people. And I'm not trying to disallow people from participating. But if there's a hard cutoff, then maybe it's a little bit easier for understand what I'm trying to do. Or maybe not. I don't know. We'll try it out. But midnight this coming Sunday will be the end of the poll. Then obviously I will compile the results and do a new video on Monday to share with you all about what the winner was and what I plan to do to carry the winning vote out. So thanks everybody for your questions and comments. That's it for today. Curious to see what you all come up with on what you'd like to see done. So place your vote in the comments below, and we will talk to you on Monday. Thanks for watching.